certain colors an immediate, threat? And what makes it immediately offensive to, officers of the Nigerian Army? These are the very, very important questions that we need to start asking ourselves. And it really just tells two things: that we still, in 2021, have not been able to get ourselves to a place where security agencies understand the respect for the rights of the Nigerian that they are meant to protect. Yes, there's a narrative that, the clothes that they wear, the guns that they use are all paid for with taxpayers' money. But they still do not understand the rights of every single Nigerian. They don't value themselves, those rights of every single Nigerian that they are meant to protect. And that's why, you get to see these things happen from the police to the NSCDC to the DSS to the Army, every single security agent, because there's zero respect for human rights here in Nigeria. There's zero respect in any way for rights here in Nigeria. And that's why you see some of these things continue to happen. And it's embarrassing, and I will say that. I've seen, Inibehe Efyong put out, his own statement on social media condemning these actions and, of course, asking that, Chiweta Aloagu be released. I hope, that we understand that we must do the right thing. And this also makes you start to wonder whether the army operation in the South is to protect, and of course, kill insurrections and cultism and some of the things that they had mentioned, and robbery and kidnapping. Or it's really just to put fear in the eyes and the minds of the IPOB, because that's what it seems like. It feels like they've been told that anybody who looks or dresses or sounds or barks like an IPOB member is immediately a threat and should be eliminated. And that's what you saw play out in that video yesterday. I'd also quickly mention that I don't know why Chiweta Aloagu is still driving that green bus when actresses across the industry are buying new Benzes and houses, across Lagos. It's embarrassing. I'll say that. Anyway, to other stories this morning. In the news, of course, the son of Abdulrasheed Maina, former head of the pensions reform tax team, has been sentenced to about 24 years imprisonment by Chief Judge Okona Bang. He, of course, got 5 years for the first count, and of course another 5 years, and an extra 10 years, I believe. I need to look at that again to be sure. For, of course, the crimes that he was accused of, mostly money laundering charges. And if you remember also, his father is also currently in custody, and of course has been sentenced, or rather is being held until his sentencing. He also, was accused of jumping bail. If you remember, Abdulrasheed Maina, a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2019 or 2020, had jumped bail. He was, eventually rearrested and, held in custody. The judge asked that he be held in custody. He applied for another bail in September, I believe, of 2021, which was denied because, of course, the judge said, well, you jumped bail before, there's no way we're going to give you bail again. But his son also, who has pretty much the same or similar charges of money laundering, has now been sentenced to about 24 years imprisonment. The difference with these two stories is, or maybe the similarities with these two persons, is the fact that Faisal Maina is currently nowhere to be found. And so he has been sentenced in absentia. And, people have asked, will he be, arrested the same way his father was rearrested? Will he be found the same way Nnamdi Kanu was easily found? What exactly would play out next? Yes, this, would be seen as a victory in the fight against corruption, and the fact that those people whose monies were laundered and mismanaged by these two persons, father and son, who couldn't get their pensions for one reason or the other, those persons will somehow, some way be able to say, yes, this is justice. And so, it's kudos, I believe, to the Nigerian, to the EFCC and, of course, the Nigerian justice system, being able to prove their case in court and find these two guilty, and, of course, go ahead with a sentencing to, prison time. We hope, somehow, some way that Faisal will be found wherever he is, either here in Nigeria or outside the country, and, of course, we'll get to serve his, time in prison. To pay for, of course, the crimes that he committed against the Nigerian state and, of course, against those thousands of pensioners that, of course, had their monies laundered. Billions of naira that were allegedly laundered by these two persons. Pretty interesting development in that case. Finally, I'm going to wrap up our top trending this morning. We're talking sports. Yesterday, Lagos State basically was shut down. I remember that I shared the news, a few times yesterday, saying that there was going to be traffic, blockage in certain places from Surulere to Oshodi, many, many names. You can divert left and right. You can, have to stop here. Don't pass this road because, there's everywhere is blocked. The Super Eagles are going to be playing today, and so in fact, Lagos should shut down. They eventually lost. They eventually lost the game, and so Wale Scott, I remember just before sports yesterday, was complaining bitterly, about how he didn't think it was necessary to cause that much traffic and discomfort to Lagosians simply because the Super Eagles were playing. It's not like they were playing against Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. It's Central African Republic, and so why did we need to shut Lagos down? But the reason they shut Lagos down, eventually didn't go as planned, as the Super Eagles eventually lost. I think it was 1-0 yesterday. There have been calls for Gernot Raw's sack. I've seen a couple of those calls on social media. I'm not sure how that will turn out, but we will continue to wish the Super Eagles best of luck and hope that they eventually get to qualify for the World Cup. Wale Scott, when he steps in for sports this morning, we'll be telling you a little bit more about their chances going forward. But of course, it's really, really sad that they lost that game. But these are our top trending stories from Anambra State, where Chiwetalo Agu was assaulted, to Faisal Mena, who has been sentenced to, about 24 years in prison, and of course to sports, where the Super Eagles yesterday lost to the Central African Republic. Once again, why is Chiwetalo Agu still driving that green ugly bus when Nollywood actresses are buying vehicles and houses every week? There's a new actress buying a car or a house. Stay with us this morning. We'll take a short break. When we come back, Jide Johnson will be joining us for Off the Press, and we'll have a quick review of the stories making headlines on Breakfast this morning.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Welcome once again to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. Now let's go to Off the Press, where we have a review of the major stories making headlines across the country this morning. We'll start with the Daily Independent newspapers this morning, and of course our guests will be joining us right after the stories have been shared. The big one, of course, expecting that to be in the screen in just a few seconds. Yes, it says federal government targets 4.2% economic growth to borrow 6.45 trillion naira. Analysts see new petrol price regime soon, and budget hollow and bogus with high-sounding figures, says CUPP. Also on the Daily Independent, condemnation trails reps directive to NCAA on Nigerian or NG Eagle. PDP NEC OK zoning of national chairmanship position to North, defers zoning of presidential tickets, and also Nigerians have right to determine who governs them, says Atiku. Gunmen attack Ebonyi communities, kill 2 policemen and 8 others. Why I won't support throwing PDP presidential ticket open. That's from Bode George. INEC releases final list of Anambra gubernatorial candidates. And court sentences Mena's son Faisal to 14 years imprisonment. And also, Buhari not planning emergency rule in Anambra, says Obiano. Of course, Storms Aso Rock says Malami goofed, accuses the APC of plotting to rig gubernatorial polls. Army arrests Nollywood actor Chiweta Loagu, denies brutalizing him. We can also see on the, away from the Daily Independent now to the leadership newspapers, it says federal government secretly raises electricity tariff. Adjustment inevitable as government can no longer sustain subsidy payment. It's unfortunate and deceitful, says customers. You can borrow to fund 2022 budget. National Assembly tells President Muhammadu Buhari. Experts warn against rising debt. And PDP ratifies Ugwanye's report on zoning. Atiku reacts. 206 kidnapped victims regain freedom in Zamfara and Kaduna. And court jails Mena's son Faisal to 14 years imprisonment. Access to malaria vaccine will save 264,000 children annually, say experts. And now to the Punch newspapers. 16.39 trillion naira budget funding. Sell refineries, moribund assets, reduce deficit. Economists, National Assembly tell Buhari. Address insecurity, don't impose multiple taxes on manufacturers, says XLCCI DG. And also block tax loopholes, impose levies on luxury goods, economists counsel federal government. We can also see on the Punch this morning, flooding will compound cholera crisis and lead to more deaths, says the Water Aid. Uniben suspends lecturer, orders police probe of alleged student's rape. And we can see here, abductor shoots colleague dead as Ondo Amotekun closes in. Smuggled Tokumbo gas cylinders flooding Nigerian market, says SON. Still on the Punch, Nigeria grants 992.9 billion naira import waivers in 2 years. Fully vaccinated Nigerians need no pre-departure test and quarantine, says the UK. And experts celebrate malaria vaccine breakthrough as federal government plans procurement. Chairmanship, PDP governors insist on North. NEC adopts zoning report. We can also see here, Mena's son jailed 14 years. Father applies to reopen defense. 24 billion naira pension fraud. Fleeing convicted director's case stalled over AGF's fiat. I think that's all we're taking on the Punch. Let's now quickly go to the Daily Trust newspapers. It says here, Gbajabia Mila, governors and others spend millions to visit Tinubu. 265 million naira expended on trips. No, we funded it ourselves, say governors and lawmakers. Politicians wasted public money on journeys, and that's from CSOs, as Lagos government unveils pro-Tinubu group. In Anambra, federal government backs Malami on possible state of emergency. Buhari opposed to it, says Obiano. And also UK to recognize Nigeria's COVID-19 vaccine certificate from the 11th of October. Nigeria's proposed 16.39 trillion naira budget raises more questions and less hope. These are the stories. And I also, say good morning to Jide Johnson, as the chief lecturer at Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Thanks for joining us this morning, Jide Johnson.
Good morning, good morning.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and good morning to our viewers.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, I'm going to start with the Abdulrashid Mena and his son story. And first, correct myself, I had said 24 years earlier in my intro. It's actually 14 years jail time that Faisal has gotten. So let's start with that, Jide Johnson. Is this, good news in the fight against corruption?
Well, it's a step in the right direction. Just a step in the right direction, and a journey of 1,000 miles starts with taking the right step. I hope we'll take the second steps to ensure that he is arrested and he paraded back to Nigeria, wherever he is, just like Nnamdi Kanu was arrested and he was brought back to Nigeria. I think we will deploy the resources of the federal government and might not in that manner, but in that direction, using all legal means to ensure that those that have been convicted are brought to justice. It's very, very, very important. And I'm sure there are people that stood shorty for him. Those also should be looked out for, and then let them produce him so that they can face the consequences of his action. Beyond himself and his dad, in that scheme, who are others that were involved? It's not possible for just two people to steal that amount of money without other officials, either in the public sector or in the banking sector, being complicit in stealing that particular money and that particular amount of money. So it's a step in the right direction. I hope we take the second step, we take the third step. The first step, we don't just get stopped by taking this step forward and we take 10 steps backward. That has been the issue with our fight against corruption. We take one giant step and then we take 10, 20 monumental steps backward. So for me, it's a welcome development.
Okay, all right. Well, I agree with you, with your thoughts on, not just both of them being guilty here. There's many other people who definitely were accomplices who also helped them facilitate this fraud. And I think it's the same thing that, we need to have these conversations with regards even governors and National Assembly members and whoever else is accused of these crimes. Most times we see just one person being accused and being sentenced for money laundering of billions of naira, but we forget that there's many, many other people who were also party to that theft. And so, yes, it's a conversation that needs to be had, and we need to do better, basically, in the fight against corruption. Now, let's go to the Southeast, where, of course, there's videos of veteran actor Chiwetalago being assaulted by Army officers yesterday. I want to get your thoughts on that. The Actors Guild of Nigeria has said that he was wrong for putting on those colors. I've also seen Inibehe Effiong put out his own statement on social media saying there's nothing actually wrong with wearing whatever colors you choose to wear. It might be a little tricky, seeing that the South is currently dealing with its own issues. But I want to get your thoughts on this.
It is his fundamental human right of self-expression. You can't. It's a fundamental. How would you say that Biafran color? Could you have said it's Kenya color? Could you have said it's Ethiopian color? And then what's the right of the military in arresting? It's the job of the police. And you see, some of us have argued that is Nigeria a democratic society or Nigeria is under civilian rule. When you have democratic rule, military authorities are subjected to civilian control. If you are very, very loud and clear, you know how many people insulted Jonathan while he was president, or Donald Trump while he was president? Or if you are very, very conversant online and see what is going on in America, where people willingly and freely welcome the president wherever he visits with flags of Donald Trump one, or FUCK Joe Biden, or I love Brandon. Have you ever seen anybody being arrested for that? Whereby someone said something untoward towards the president of the United States. Those are democratic values. Why would you, because it's putting on, and then you see this military, they are quick to do that in the Southeast. It's not Operation Thunder, Operation Okudai Tears, or what have you. And then when you go to the other side of the country, Operation Smile, Operation this, Operation that. You've seen Mieti Allah's spokesperson threatening fire and brimstone on the nation. We've seen governors being accompanied by the police and the DSS to talk to bandits. But innocent citizens that are walking on the street that felt that they want to give expression to their views and their thoughts. In democracy, majority we have their way, minority we have their say. So what stops me from wearing something that relates to Ududua Republic or something? It's just a self-expression. So wearing it there does not mean that it's carrying out. Did he conduct himself in a violent manner? So I totally condemn them. And I think if he has lawyers, he should sue the Nigerian Army, he should sue the Nigerian government, and hold government accountable to that. Every Nigerian is entitled to self-expression, self-determination. I may decide that I don't want my part of the country to be part of Nigeria. In as much as I didn't engage in violence, I can say it and express it that, you know what, from my experience, I think it will be better for Lagos State, for example, to be detached from the entire Nigerian nation, because I'm from Lagos State. So that's my self-expression. It doesn't mean that I don't have a right to saying that. What I don't have the right to do is to engage in violent conduct, to carry out such acts, such thoughts, such feelings. So for me, it's ridiculous. And every time the military does this, they just take a minus of whatever image, positive image they have with the citizenry from themselves.
Yeah, I want you to speak a little bit more about that, because I was saying earlier that the Nigerian Army has continued to cheapen itself with being involved with civil, cases and things that they really should have no business with. Isn't this, even causing more damage to the image of the Nigerian Army?
That's caused serious damage to the image of the Nigerian Army. It has caused serious damage to how Nigerians see the Nigerian Army. Is the Nigerian Army representing them, or is he an occupation force? Because I just can't complain. And I'd say, hopefully in 2023, we'll have someone that does not have military background, military antecedent, becoming the president of this nation. I'm not too sure that particular group, they are limited now. Because, the present president has a military background, and he was the former head of state, just like we had when we started this democratic experience in 1999 with Obasanjo, who also had a military background and was also a former head of state. So no matter how it means, you can watch the spot in the skin, the black spot in the skin of a leopard skin. And don't forget, these people joined the military while in their formative years. So they've already been formed in terms of their thought, in terms of their thinking pattern, and in terms of their values. So that's why we have said Nigeria is not truly a democratic society. Nigeria is still a civilian state. Having a civilian rule does not reflect or does not connote that you have a democratic society. There are a lot of factors, there are a lot of indices that must be put in place: respect for human liberty, constitutionalism, obedience of court order, operating within the ambit of the rule of law, subjugation of military authority to civilian authority. All of these factors are what determines whether a society is democratic or is autocratic or is despotic. So if you use all those indicators as a measurement yardstick, then you understand that truly we are still far away from having a democratic society.
All right. Since you brought up 2023, we're going to now move into 2023 conversations where there's something called the Swagger Group. And of course, in Lagos here, the Lagos State government did, a somehow, some way, Tinubu campaign group yesterday. It was, of course, all over headlines, and of course, there are video clips all over the place. The Lagos State governor was there. Artists, came out to perform. And of course, there is also the song, On Your Mandate We Stand, all of that. So quickly also share your thoughts on that one. It's on the...
one of the former chairman of my local government was involved in it. In terms of, instead of doing governance for us in the local government, who was involved in what they call their swagger movement, and I don't know how you be using taxpayers' money. This is where EFCC needs to start. What we need to do is to prevent people stealing the money in the first instance, putting measures in place, wasting public resources, using public resources for purposes they were not budgeted for. This is where it starts, and I think that EFCC should not wait for them to steal the money, for people to put their hand in the cookie jar, go into the coffers of the state to run their own personal agenda. This is where they should start, not until they do that before they start doing their financial. There should be financial intelligence before financial prosecution. We should gather facts to prevent and forestall what is happening. Why would state government resources be used to pursue the past presidential ambition of an individual? And for me, let's wait and see where their swagger will take them to, whether their swagger will take them to Aso Rock. And if they are using swagger to get to Aso Rock, definitely Nigerians should be ready for swag and not for proper governance. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of time, waste of public resources for government to be thinking about the presidential ambition of someone that has not even openly declared his presidential. He has not openly declared his presidential, and we are still in 2021, and they are talking about. So you just see that these people are concerned about politics and not about governance, and that's why governance has suffered in Nigeria. Let them call politicians, let them waste whatever resources they want to waste. Ultimately, it is the Nigerian people that will decide who will be their president. If Nigerian people want swagger, let's go for swagger. If they don't want swagger, they will decide whatever they want concerning 2022. But I think we shouldn't be doing this. If you relate this story to the jamboree of lawmakers going to visit the principal of swagger, the people that swagger are clamoring for to be the president, the speaker, governors have done, which resources, like 10 millions have been wasted, which resources have been used to go? These are the areas in which EFCC should collect their intelligence, and when they leave office, they ask them to pay back to the society. You know, I asked this when Richard Nixon was impeached as the president of United States of America, and he was taking Air Force One to take him. The moment he was impeached, in fact, American people were saying that they should pay back whatever resources he used in that aircraft in taking him out, because he got a presidential pardon from Gerald Ford. That was why he was not held accountable for that. Whose resources are they using? We must ask this basic question, because you don't use public resources to seek election, to control public fund, and that has been the cycle of what we have. Well, there is their leader, is their paymaster, so they will do whatever it takes for them to do that. But they shouldn't be using our resources. They should be held accountable for that. That was why when the president received Femi Fani-Kayode in Aso Rock, I said that that's an impeachable offense. If you don't use the state resources for political, for your political parties, what have you, or they should pay back to Nigeria. If you want to conduct your affairs, you take it to the National Secretariat. And you see, PDP conducted their own meeting yesterday. They had it in the National Secretariat of their party, where they talked about zoning the national chairman to North and leaving the presidential ticket open for now. And let's see what happens concerning that. We must apply some basic principles and some basic ethos and values that relate and resonate with public governance and democracy, some measure of decency. You can't use state resources, such as using state house, using state vehicles, using state to go for your political parties and meeting, and that's using taxpayers' money. Those that voted, another sacrilegious act by the present political classes, using the flag of their party in state house. It's an impeachable offense. Why would a governor want to give a speech and then you put the flag of APC or PDP? The moment you are elected as a governor or as a president, you are no longer APC representative. You are the governor of that state. Those that voted for you and those that voted against you, you are representing them. And those that didn't even vote for you. In actual sense, majority of the people don't even vote for you. I'm not sure the governor of Lagos State got up to 1 million votes. And the total number of voters in Lagos State is close to 6 million. That means that the people that voted for, that did not vote for him, are much more than those that actually voted for him. Same goes for the president. The president didn't get more than 15 plus million votes. And there were 85 million voters, 85 million voters in Nigeria. It means that those that did not vote for him are more than those that actually voted for him. So is that popular mandate, or what type of mandate do we call that? And then they will now use the flag of their party, they will put in the cars, they will use it, and they will use state office to promote and project their party. It is criminal. And it is an impeachable affair. It is indecent. Have you ever seen that in other climes where people do that? And people will just abuse office and they abuse people. The first impeachable offense that can be committed by anybody is the abuse of office and privileges. And they've done that left, right, and center across parties, from PDP to APC, APC to ABGA to whichever one they want to call themselves coming by 2023.
All right.
Because do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. By the time we get to next year, 2022, you begin to see the conflagrations of this political party. Another party will emerge because they don't really care about us. All they care about is them seeking election and winning election and to run the private estate. So, like Michael Jackson said, all I want to say is they don't care about us. All they care about is about the election. So that's why they can have swagger. They can continue to swagger.
All right, we'll see how it turns out. But now let's talk about the economy. We'll go back to Anambra in a bit. But let's talk about the economy now. The president yesterday presented a 2022 budget of 16.39 trillion naira. But of course, there is a budget deficit of more than 6 trillion. Of course, there's also plans to borrow trillions of naira to cover up for all of that. Share your thoughts on where we're going with regards borrowing and.
Let me put it across to you. Last year, you borrow money to fund your lifestyle. I'm just using an illustration. Let me use myself as an example. Last 2 years ago, I borrowed money to fund my lifestyle, my taste and my value. This year, I borrowed money to fund my lifestyle again. My lifestyle increased. I didn't cut my expense. And next year, I'm still going to borrow more money to fund my lifestyle. What will happen to me in 5 years' time? Now we are borrowing money because if you narrow it down to an individual and then you take it to the state, it shows that one, they are not disciplined. There's no financial discipline. What are the things that we can do or we can stop? What are the things we are doing that we need to stop in order to ensure that we reduce the deficit and we stop borrowing? Because we keep borrowing money to fund the budget. Budget on what? Is it on capital expenditure or recurrent expenditure? How much money do we vote for recurrent expenditure? Now, when you vote too much money for recurrent, you are affording lifestyle you cannot afford. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she said the brother took the car of the mom, of the dad, and then the car got spoiled, and he took that of the mom, that one spoiled, and then he now took that of the dad, and then he's driving. I said, look, tell the young man, he's living a lifestyle. Don't live a lifestyle you cannot fund. If you cannot repair the car, don't drive the car. So if Nigerians cannot afford this lifestyle, the bogus lifestyle of our public officials, the allowances we give to them, what steps have they taken to cut the allowances, the extra codes, the wastages, to plug the wastages in government? Different groups have recommended, we should tax this, we should tax that, we should block this, we should block that. Have we taxed? Have we disciplined the political class? Have we? Don't we need to reduce the cost of governance on its own? If you look at the budget and you look at the vote that is going for the cost of governance, you will be shocked. You'll be shocked. And then the National Assembly that has the power over the purse is telling the president, you know what, Mr. President, you can borrow to fund this lifestyle. Because they too can go on a jamboree like they went to visit the supposed national leader of APC and other things they want, they want to do. They can have money to do swagger or whatever they call it. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's an irresponsible person. And if it's government, it's an irresponsible government that will borrow money to fund a lifestyle that it cannot afford. If someone should do that, it will be condemned totally. And I think we need to condemn. We've been borrowing money to fund the Nigerian lifestyle we cannot afford. We put austerity measures in place. And the government have done different ways to raise money. And what has happened to the price of product? There's a story which you read that secretly government increased the tariff of electricity.
Yes.
They increased the tariff of electricity. I know because we use prepaid meter. I know what it takes to buy. Averagely, we spend close to about 25,000 on electricity tariff. So if I spend that minus my PE, minus the VAT, so all my income have been taxed beyond limits. That's why Nigerians are complaining. Because left, right, and center government is taking money from you, and yet government is borrowing money to fund a lifestyle you cannot afford. Yet you cannot even see the deliverables of democracy in terms of infrastructure, in terms of improvement in your standard of living. What has happened to our standard of living? Has it improved, or has it let me use the word, has it deproved?
All right. Well, we're moving away from there now. Let's go back to the Southeast, where, of course, there was talks of a state of emergency. It's one of the things that made headlines yesterday.
Section 150 established the office of the Attorney General. Section 150 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 as amended, established the office of the Attorney General of the Federation as the chief law officer, and he shall be a minister of the Federal Republic. The chief law officer should not be the chief lawbreaker. Number one. Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution as amended made exclusive provision on how and why the state of emergency can be declared. I didn't see the office of the Attorney General. I didn't see any reference. The only reference to it indirectly is when it is published in the official gazette, and which I think will have to come from his office. But I didn't see the mention of the Minister of Justice or the Attorney General having the power to make a proclamation or to make a statement, because once you make a statement, it's to that effect that a state of emergency will be declared. I have not seen. I didn't see. I read through that. I read through that section of the Constitution, and the conditions were explicit. The power was given to the president to proclaim, and within 2 days, if the National Assembly is in session, to be ratified by 2/3 of the National Assembly, and if it's not in session, within 10 days to be ratified by the National Assembly. Both the Senate and their 2/3 members to be ratified. And if that is not done within those two, it will be declared null and void. So it requires the approval of the National Assembly. That's procedure number one. Two is if the state governor, with a resolution of the State House of Assembly passed by 2/3 majority, asks the president to declare it a state of emergency. And then that's when it can happen. And there are conditions, whether they are war or threatening of war, or there is a likelihood of breakdown of law. And I don't want to act like lawyers here, just talking on basic knowledge of what I read and what I interpreted from the Constitution as a man of letters. Because the degree lawyers get, the degree lawyers get is bachelors of laws and letters. So as a man of letters, if you are lettered, you can read the Constitution and understand the Constitution. What you cannot just do is to appear before a judge and solicit or advocate on behalf of somebody. But everyone is lettered. Once you are educated, you are lettered. So you have bachelors of letters. So you can read the Constitution and understand what the Attorney General said. If it's in other claim, he will be impeached, because it will be irresponsible for Attorney General of the Federation to arrogate to himself, the chief officer, the powers that he does not have. It's an insult. and trampling on the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and insulting the sensitivity and the knowledge of Nigerians. So it's clear, explicitly clear on how state of emergency can be declared.
All right. Now let's move away from that and go to the Daily Independent. Some of the stories here. It says here, why I won't support throwing PDP presidential ticket open, and that is from Bode George. The PDP NEC OK zoning of national chairmanship position to North, defers zoning of presidential ticket, and also Nigerians have a right to determine who governs them. So it seems like it's different narratives from Bode George and Atiku Abubakar with regards to zoning conversation.
There's a saying in my local dialect: if you give a hoe to a madman, he will use the hoe to put the ridges to himself. So everybody, the games they are playing is about having a shot on the presidential ticket. So I've said it, if you want to go by the law of natural justice, the presidency should be zoned to either the southeast as first point of call, and then the south-south as the second point of call. The southwest, the northwest shouldn't even be in the conversation of the president and the vice president moving forward. But that's for advocates of zoning in actual sense. It's important for them. But I've said it that zoning is not in the Nigerian constitution. It was a PDP arrangement. Even the 6th geopolitical zone is not represented in the Nigerian constitution. It was a fallout of what was brought out of the 1995 Constituent Assembly, and then it was not included in the constitution. The report of the Constituent Assembly is what was modified, ratified, and used as the 1999 constitution by the 12 wise men appointed by Abdul Salam, because that constitution itself was meant to perpetuate Abacha in power forever and ever. So that's where we have zoning. But as far as I'm concerned, because of the peculiar nature of how we have found ourselves, I don't really care. Let me tell you the truth. I don't really care where the president comes from. That's the truth. I don't care where the president comes from. But if you see the way the political class have been talking, it's about people want the presidency to be zoned to their area so that they can have a shot at the presidency. Let the best man get the job, but how do we determine who is the best? Because they've all been in one form of they've been at one office or the other since 1999. So they've assuaged and assaulted our sensitivity, that we have lost our sense of decency and common good, that Nigeria have just accepted their fate, that this is where we have found ourselves. Let's just take it. Because who should be listening to Bode George? Who should even give a voice to Bode George? Who is Bode George? Of what value, of what political value or relevance does he play? And then someone will listen to him. And then Atiku Abubakar has had his own shot. We shouldn't be glorifying some spent forces. They've had opportunities to do things in the country, and they have abused it. I'm a Lagosian, and I can talk about Bode George. I've attended meetings in his house. I know his character, I know his person. So who is he? My friend, you know what? I don't care where the president comes from. Let the president, as long as we have the delivery of democracy. The president presently is from Katsina. What value has it been to people in Katsina and the Northwest? The highest form of banditry is happening in the Northwest. We read in one story in the newspaper, 250 victims, kidnapped victims, were released from Zamfara.
Yes,
and Kaduna State. They are from where? The Northwest. Where is the president from? He's from the Northwest. So that the president comes from your region, of what value is it to you? Jonathan spent close to 6 years. Of what value was it to people in Bayelsa State? Obasanjo spent 8 years. You can't go through Abule Egba, Lagos, Abeokuta Express. You can't there. It's atrocious. You spend the whole of your life going through that route. So Buhari is the president of Nigeria. Is from Katsina State. Of what value has it been to Katsina people? It doesn't really matter whether the president is from a village. Some communities that have governors from them. Okay, I saw a story of a gubernatorial candidate in the Anambra election. The road leading to his house is atrocious, and this person has held public offices in the past that he could have used to better the lot of the people in his community. But because they don't live in the community, the governor was asked that he spend only 3 days in his state. He governs from Abuja, and he said, what does he want to go and do in his state? He could run the government from Abuja. Was he elected to run the government from Abuja or to live within his state? And I went this particular story. I think it's a state in the United States of America. Was it not Dakota or South Dakota? Idaho is the state of Idaho. The governor left. He was within the United States. The governor went to the southern border in Texas and he handed over to the deputy. I was rattled because the governor left the state. And people don't understand this principle. The moment the governor leaves the state is state territory, because it's the governor of a territory. The governor of Ogun State, the moment it comes to Lagos State, is no longer a governor of. He's the governor of Ogun State. He's not the governor. He shouldn't be harassing us with the siren of. It shouldn't be, because he's a private citizen in Lagos. He does not have the executive authority and privileges he enjoys in his state. In Lagos, he has become just one of us in Lagos. And same applies. But what do we know about democracy? And because we have been under military regime for a very long time, and some of the vestiges and bad behavior of military administrators and military administration, we have imported into our democratic values. And instead of having democratic values, we have civilian values.
All right. Judy Johnson.
Nigeria.
We'll have to wrap up here. Thank you very much, as always, for your thoughts on these stories. Of course, I wish you a very beautiful weekend ahead.
It's just you and I today. It's just you and I today.
Yes, it is.
He didn't give us a beautiful face to smile at. All right. No, while I there, my greetings.
Have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
And everybody in the background.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right, stay with us. We're taking a short break to tell you a little bit about history and what happened on this day in the year 2014. Yes, if you remember the Ebola virus. I'm sharing just a little bit of that with you this morning on Off the Press, or rather today in history. Stay with us here on The Breakfast.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Welcome once again to The Breakfast here on Plus TV Africa. Now let's go back in history. Just before our first major conversation for today, I'm sharing with you about the first person in the United States that was diagnosed with the Ebola virus. And that person died on this day, on the 8th of October, in 2014. His name, Thomas Eric Duncan. He was the first person diagnosed with Ebola virus in the U.S., and he was aged 42. He died at the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. Shortly before his death, Duncan, who lived in Liberia, traveled to America from West Africa, and after he passed away in the U.S., 2 nurses who cared for him at the Dallas hospital also contracted Ebola. However, both of them survived. Duncan's diagnosis sparked anxiety and fear about the Ebola virus across the U.S. at the time, and there were no proven treatments or vaccines for the disease at that time. 4 days later, a second nurse at the hospital was confirmed also to have contracted the disease, and both of them, of course, were isolated and did eventually survive. A total of 2 people did die in the U.S. during the 2014 outbreak. And of course, you remember Nigeria's story with the Ebola virus also, and of course, the way that the government at that time was able to successfully handle the breakout of that virus. Also, you know, with a person from Liberia who visited Nigeria and was held, you know, and prevented from spreading from the Ebola virus. And that's what we have for you today in history, the 8th of October, 2014. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, our first major conversation for today, we're going to be talking about the 2022 budget, 16.39 trillion naira, with more than 6 trillion naira in deficit. We'll be talking about that this morning with our guest after this break. Stay with us.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
The 2022 budget of economic growth and sustainability has a projected capital expenditure of 5.35 trillion naira, a non-debt recurrent spending of 6.8 trillion naira, and debt servicing projected to cost 3.61 trillion naira. With crude oil averaging $67 a barrel this year, the oil price benchmark for 2022 has been set at $57 per barrel, with an oil production estimate of 1.88 million barrels per day. The budget proposal is based on an exchange rate of 410 naira 15 kobo to the dollar and projected GDP growth of 4.2%, while the inflation rate is 13%. But there is a proposed budget deficit of 6.26 trillion naira.
We plan to finance the deficit mainly by new borrowings, totaling 5.01 trillion naira, 90.73 billion naira for privatization proceeds.
President Buhari sought to allay fears over Nigeria's growing debt.
Some have expressed concern over our resort to borrowing to finance our fiscal gaps. They are right to be concerned. However, we believe that the debt level of the federal government is still within sustainable limits. Borrowing at specific strategic projects and can be verified publicly.
But a sustainability consultant would like the government to look inwards in funding the budget deficit.
The currently MDAs, as well as international oil companies and other very important organizations across the country, they've refused to remit certain funds within their disposal to the federal government. And we know that this fund runs into trillions of naira. So I think if the president can actually focus on getting these MDAs and IOCs and other relevant organizations to do the remittance they need to do in respect to their taxes and other obligations to the federal government, maybe we'll just be able to generate just enough money to be able to shove the issue of borrowing to the ground.
With the early presentation of the 2022 appropriation bill and all things being equal, Nigeria could well be on track for a budget cycle of 12 calendar months from January to December. Mercy Ebokbo for Plus TV Africa.
Just a quick report there by Mercy Ebokbo of Plus TV Africa. And now we're going to be speaking with Femi Egbeshola, the President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
3 points.
Mr. Egbeshola, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning, and thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the breakfast this morning. And I'm going to start with asking, your basic thoughts on the president's budget yesterday, 16.39 trillion naira. There have been people who have screamed, at those figures, seeing where we're coming from. In the year 2000, our budget wasn't, more up to 700 billion naira. We've moved from there to, asking for about 16.39 trillion naira in 2022. So let me, first of all, get your thoughts from yesterday's address to the joint session of the National Assembly.
Well, the increase in the budget to 16.39 trillion is an indication that government is going to have more money to pump into different ministry, agencies, and parastatals, and that will also mean more development for the country, as it may be, and that's what we need for now. The inflation rate is so high that we need so much fund to be able to tackle inflation and bring back the economy to what it used to be. But the challenge there now is how do we fund this? Do we have that kind of fund? Can we actually generate the expected revenue that has been proposed? Well, must we continue to borrow to support our budgets? That's the concern. Naturally, one would have expected that the budget should be based on the national revenue rather than going ahead to fund it from borrowed money overseas. And it means that the government also needs to begin to look inward and see how they can work more on local national revenue generation, such that our budget be based on what we can have and not we can borrow from. Well, it also shows that there's a problem with the system, with the economy, because if you are spending more than what you can generate, it means there are leakages somewhere. It means there are certain challenges somewhere, and it means that there's need for us to increase our productivity. That being said, the government needs to be more innovative in generating revenue, such that our budget will be dependent on what we can raise, and this budget will be prudently spent on the proposals. For example, in Nigeria today, we have a lot of policy pronouncements, but the implementation has always been a challenge. The question is, this year's budget 2021, how has the implementation rate been? What are the reviews of this year's budgets to show the challenges we have had, what areas we have deviated from the proposals that was made last year, and how can we correct it? These are the things we need to look at.
Okay, so I'm going to go next to, one of the things that you mentioned, and that is budget implementation. We don't have enough of that conversation. We also have an Auditor General who doesn't really do justice, with helping to explain to Nigerians, and of course the presidency, to explain that to Nigerians how well we've used the funds that were budgeted and those that were borrowed and whatnot. It's always easy when the president puts out those speeches saying, you can see that roads were built, you can see trains were built, this and that, but there's no proper detail as to how proper the budget was implemented. So let's get your thoughts on that one. Does that just make us seem to be moving blindly and continue borrowing?
It seems more like that. I think the government of the day needs to be more proactive about implementation and reviews. We need to have a stronger economic team, and we also need to have perhaps another team that monitors the implementation of the budget, such that we are in tandem with what we are expected to do with taxpayers' money. Given that we can also have challenges at times, like this particular year, last year, we know that the COVID-19 pandemic actually disrupted the budgets to a very large extent. But be that as it may, we should at all time continue to focus on the implementation of what we have. And this time, I think more funds should go into sustaining the economy and growing the economy instead of servicing recurrence. And that has always been another challenge with our budgets over time. We need to be focused on growing the industries in the country such that they can be more productive and we can get more revenue from them. We need not to focus more on oil as we have always done. Like in this budget also, the focus is more on oil. We are expecting most of the revenue to come from the oil sector, which to me is not in tandem with the realities of today's world. We need to focus more on growing the SMEs. We need to focus more on growing skill acquisition so that we can have more job opportunities in the country. We need to focus more on the health sector so that most of our funds will not be going overseas in the name of going for treatment overseas, and Naira becomes threatened the more. We need to focus more on developing our raw materials. We have a lot of raw materials, raw minerals in the country that are unexplored and can give us a lot of revenues if government actually focus more than they are doing at the moment on this. We also need to focus on education. We cannot really get much without actually paying more attention on education. Education has always been one of the bedrock of any economy. If we are fully budgeting enough into the education sector, you will discover that there are going to be more innovation, and with innovative ideas, we'll be able to create a better economy for ourselves that will no longer be dependent on getting funds from overseas, and we'll be able to also reduce our imports. The import into this country has been challenging and has been threatening our Naira, and as long as it continues to do that, inflation will continue to rise, and government will always need more money to fight inflation by increasing their budgets year by year, and that's not the way to go. So for us to be able to tackle inflation effectively and efficiently, we need to make sure that Nigerians bring to understand that local made products and services is the way to go. We must encourage the production and patronage of locally made products and services. And this has to start with government itself. Government needs to begin to see how they can patronize the locally made products and services the more and be less dependent on the imported ones. Granted that we have quite a number of prohibited product lists by CBN, but we need to go beyond that. One thing is to have some products being prohibited. Another thing is to enforce the prohibition. Today we have foreign rice all around us. It's part of the prohibited list, and many other products and even food items that are prohibited but are still in our market. What are they doing there? Who is enforcing these policies such that our budget will be in a place where it should be and not the other way around, whereby saboteurs will begin to disrupt the efficiency and effectiveness of the policy proposal and the implementation of the policy in the end of the day.
Yeah. Ms. Aibashola, these things, I'm sure that we could have had the same conversation in 2015 or in 2016 or 2017. Because we've had, similar, these discussions and these plans. And, I'm sure experts have continued to say these things over the years. How much we need to focus on development, focus on industries, focus on science and technology, education, healthcare, basic infrastructure. Some of all these things that really would help the Nigerian economy grow. But every year we see that there's an increment in the budget proposal. That means that these things aren't working. And so we need to continue to source for more money. So I'm going to come back to that, and get your views on how well we've done in that regard. But I want you to share your views concerning those who are complaining that we are borrowing too much. We currently have more than 6 trillion naira deficit. We very likely will be borrowing about 5 trillion naira plus. Do you have similar worries with former President Olusegun Obasanjo and other experts who have said that this is really just leading us, to a very, very terrible, situation if we continue borrowing?
Yes, an average Nigerian should be bothered about our borrowing because it is going to have a direct negative influence on all of us at the end of the day. No individual, no business, no country will want to borrow to finance his or her expenditure. That is not right. And nobody will want to agree with that. I, for one, continue to wonder why we should keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing without working on how to increase our revenue. Granted, we may have a reason to borrow for once, but it should not be a custom that you have to borrow again and again and again. If you continue to spend more than what you can generate, it means there's going to be a problem, and eventually there will be a collapse. And the government needs to understand that they need to learn from the other economies. We have bigger economies that are having more population than Nigeria, that has several other challenges, but they are not borrowing. They have learned to live according to their means and also become innovative in generating revenue. And that's the way to go. It's a lot of concern. We wonder what will happen next year again, because the borrowing of this year will always be more than that of the other year. Yes. And it's not good for the economic health. It means that the government also needs to check their economic team. I think it's the right time for us to begin to look at how to encourage government to put more experts in the economy to see or steer the direction where the economy is going. We cannot continue to live on borrowing. It's like a blood. When blood is leaking from your system and it is not blocked on time, death is imminent. And that's exactly what we foresee with this economy. It's an uncomfortable situation.
Well, I don't think there's a lack of experts in the country. There's persons like you. There's lots of people who understand the economy to perfection. But unfortunately, the persons in government don't seem to agree with your narrative or the narrative of some of these experts. And so I know you're not speaking for the government, but why do you think that they understand it different? Because Minister of Finance has made statements yesterday saying that we will continue to borrow to keep the country growing. So where do you think their own narrative comes from?
Well, I think that there's a lot of difference between sitting on a table and forming a policy and being on the streets. Many of the economists that are on the streets that are romancing with the public day by day are not, unfortunately, in the government economic committees or team. Yeah. That is why some of us are clamoring that stakeholders needs to be brought to fore, be part of an economic team of the government. The so-called technocrats alone or government officials alone cannot sit in the office and think that all is well. All is not well. They don't really understand the happenings in the streets this time. It is very, very difficult for an average man to live and even have 3 square meals a day. And that's the challenge. And that is why we have increase in crime and vices everywhere. Banditry, kidnapping, name it. Everywhere it's about crimes and vices. Because everybody must survive. And when they cannot get the good means of survival, they look the other way around. And why do they find it difficult to survive? Because the economy is so harsh. The inflation rate is the highest at any point in time in our history. And that's not good for us. If I were the president, I think it is high time I look into my economic team and perhaps make some critical changes to be able to effect the realities of the economies of today. We need not continue to borrow. We must be able to look inward. If organizations, companies in and around Nigeria are still weathering the storm, COVID-19 or not, and they are still making profits, declaring profits, why will a country be declaring deficits? That's not right. And I do not agree with the team that we must continue to borrow and borrow with the numerous potentials that this country has and the human capital too that we have that can harness these potentials to bring in even more than the double of the revenue that is being projected at this point.
Great time to remind Nigerians that elections have consequences. And it might take 8 years, for every person to feel the effect of those consequences. Mr. Ekpeshola, now
I like that.
So I now want us to talk about the value of the naira, and what this continuous borrowing, the effect that it will have. The CBN governor has continued to do all he can to help the exchange rate somehow, some way become more reasonable. But these plans, are not working very well. And so, is borrowing, as briefly as you can, is borrowing also one of the reasons why we'll continue to see the naira's value depreciate?
Of course, it also contributes directly to the depreciation of the naira. Because when you continue to borrow to sustain your expenditure, you will continue to live big. And when you continue to live big, it is being at the detriment of the naira, because every other person, to every other institution too, will believe there is money to spend, and they don't now look inward. They look at the money that is available, money that is ready to share from state to state, from local government to local government, and everybody seems to be comfortable, while the reality is different. And that means that it is time now for government to see how they can strengthen the naira, not just by relying on the policies of CBN, which has not been working as it should be over time, but facing the realities, the physical realities of the streets. We need to look at how to strengthen our economy, how to strengthen the small and medium enterprise sector, how to strengthen the industries, how to strengthen our youth to be more productive, such that we will be able to have more jobs created, we'll be able to have more enterprise coming up, and the existing enterprises will be able to grow faster and bigger than what they used to be. We become less dependent on imports, and this will eventually bring back our naira to its lost glory. If we reduce our imports to the barest minimum, naturally and ordinarily, the dollar will begin to fall and naira will continue to rise. But if we continue to rely on policies on the table, I'm sorry to say, we will continue to have a long way to go. What has this policy taken with us to? For the past 3, 4, 5 years, naira has continued to enjoy a free fall. And that means that something is wrong with those policies if we are not actually getting the desired result. And that means we need to do something different to get a different result at this time. We cannot continue to don't look like some people will say. The budget is proposed on 410 naira to $1, but the reality is that the market, in the open market, is not even 410 naira, meaning that we have even gotten it wrong from the beginning. And the only way to get it right is to be less dependent on imports and more encouraging more of exports so that we can strengthen our naira the more.
Is the current oil price any form of comfort? Because we have an oil price benchmark of 57, but of course oil price is currently around 80 and maybe even climbing.
Well, yes, the benchmark for this proposal is $57 per barrel, right? But the real market price is more and above that. I love that the government has been very conservative with their proposal this time. That is good. But some of us have lost confidence in the sales of crude oil to sustain our budgets. Some of us don't believe again that we must continue to rely on how much a barrel of oil is sold before economy can run. We have gone past that. The world is even looking at finding alternative means of a source of energy rather than oil, meaning that at a point in time, there will be less and less demand for oil. Where would that place our country if we continue to put our primary reliance on oil and how much a barrel of oil is sold? And it shows that we are still not looking inward enough. So we believe that the fixed price of $57 per barrel should be realistic, all things being equal, because it is conservative enough. But at the same time, we need to look more beyond just selling crude oil to maintain our economy. For example, government is looking at getting more oil wells because our oils are actually drying up. But is that the way to go? Do we really need to continue to pump our money into discovering and exploring oil wells? I think that's not the way to go. The government needs to focus on the non-oil product, domestic products, and see how they can encourage these domestic products to grow rather than more focus, more attention on our sales of crude oil and its exploration.
Femi Egbeshola, you are President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. And I'm going to, bring you in, with that. You earlier spoke about, how we haven't done well enough with investing in numerous other sectors. How important that we need to focus on other sectors like, the agriculture sector, industries, science and technology, small businesses, SMEs across the country, education, healthcare, and all of that. So I want you to share your views on how you think, that better investment in small businesses will be able to help Nigeria. And also, look at the way that the current government has also positioned itself. People have said that they have continued to stifle businesses. Earlier this morning, we spoke about how electricity price has also been hiked secretly without Nigerians knowing. So do you think that the current government, even if they continue to say that, they always have these great speeches that they make, but do you think that they've done well enough with regards opening up the space for small businesses to thrive in Nigeria?
Well, the end result should be a determinant that should answer that question. And the end result is the SME space growing? Are we having more enterprise? The enterprises that are existing, are they growing? Are they transforming from micro to small, from small to medium, from medium to large enterprise? The answer is no. And why is this? Because the economic realities is so harsh and is not conducive for growth. And what makes it so hard? Because a lot of infrastructure deficits is in the country. And it becomes very, very difficult for startups, for small, medium enterprises to grow. We have a situation whereby instead of recording growth, we are recording death. Many companies now, many small businesses at either a point of death or are already dead. What's the reason for this? Government will give a support of perhaps 10% and create a situation that will take about 30% out of them. Granted, government has done a lot of intervention this recent times, quite a number of interventions, but the question is how many benefited from this intervention? According to this Median report, we have about 47 million entrepreneurs in the country at the moment, and I'm sure that is far more than that. The realities of today show that we have more than even 60 million entrepreneurs. This intervention, how many of these entrepreneurs benefited from it? Can it even get up to 1-2 million entrepreneurs? If it gets to 1 million, what's the percentage of 1 million compared to 47 million? That means a lot still needs to be done. There's a lot of gap that needs to be covered, that needs to be filled if we really want entrepreneurs or small medium businesses to grow in this country. But virtually all the sectors are healing. Look at the agricultural sector. We have a lot of food wasting away while we continue to import products that are made from exported food here, while our own raw food are wasting away. Government needs to bridge that link. Government needs to encourage agriculture. They've done so much on agriculture, but they still need to do more. They need to create access road from the rural areas to the cities, to the town, such that this farm produce can move efficiently to the cities where it will be bought and consumed. Government needs to also support the real farmers. You will discover that many of these incentives are going to political farmers and not the real farmers. And that's why the real farmers are still doing it the local, crude way that they are working. Government needs to have been able to lift them from that crude method of farming to mechanized farming that is the order of today, that will increase productivity. Why would we continue to buy beans that we can plant here as much as 100,000 naira per bag? That's silly. And it means that something is wrong somewhere. Why would we plant our rice here, harvest it, and before we can sell it, we have to rebag it, put a bag with a tag name in Thailand? It means something is wrong. Yes, something is wrong. So government has done a little, but they need to do more. And the only way they can actually do more is to engage stakeholders, like I said the other time. They cannot sit in the office and know where the true pitch is on the streets. They need to involve people who are actually stakeholders, who knows the nitty-gritty of what is happening to the economy and to the business, and bring them on board to also bring out their suggestions that will, at the end of the day, be part of the policy that government will come out with, and also support them in the implementation of these policies. That's the only way we can get it right. The education sector is another bad sector that we can talk about. Our schools are in shambles. Look at the average public primary schools, secondary schools. You will discover that those students coming out of there must have been geniuses to be able to come out with good grades. Look at our graduates. What is the quality of education they've been able to receive? And many of them are unemployable because the quality of education is becoming low and falling every day. We will continue to talk on and on and on. But for me, the paramount one, because I belong to the business sector, is for government this time to pay more attention on developing the SME space. Why do we need to do this? Because the jobs are no longer there. These jobs are no longer there for our graduates and our Nigerian youths. The only way we can have jobs now is to grow the enterprise space so that those entrepreneurs can employ more people and other youth can embrace entrepreneurship and come to employ others. The government actually have no job creating jobs. It is the duty of the entrepreneurs to create jobs, and they can only create jobs if the environment is enabling.
Well, an enabling environment it cannot be overemphasized how important it is. And that includes also the challenges that we've had with security, the challenges we've also had with electricity, and basically, these little new laws here and there that stifle businesses. That's why you also see a lot of young people moving on to social media, to be their medium of trade, because they can't afford to do business, the regular way. Ms. Agbeshola, quickly also, because we're going to wrap up in a bit, share your views on, your views on revenue over time and how important it is that we should somehow, some way, be able to improve on Nigeria's revenue. We are going to be looking for 5 trillion naira to borrow. We currently cannot find 6 trillion naira to complete our budget. It means that Nigeria is not making enough money. Do you think that the Minister of Finance and the Nigerian government currently understands the need for us to improve on the revenue as a country in order to stop borrowing?
Well, like I did say, results are actually generated from what you can see, not just on paperwork. The realities we can see, every one of us can see, shows that they are not getting it really right. And I wonder if they realize that. And it would be too bad if they don't realize this. And perhaps that may be one of the reasons why we are still where we are today. We need to change our ways of doing things so that we can get a different result. We cannot just continue this way. The economy is collapsing every day, but we have many ways to raise revenue. Many people are not in the tax nets. In fact, those people paying tax are far less than those who are in the tax nets. But how do you bring somebody in the tax net who has not been able to eat 3 square meal a day? So for you to be able to actually bring people to the tax net, government must also show that they are responsible. People must see, the citizens must see that government is actually working to improve their welfare and their well-being. When that is not done, it will be difficult to bring them to the tax nets. Imagine, just this week, the price of diesel has gone up, the price of electricity has gone up, so many other prices has gone up, dollar is rising. What does that mean? It means that the products and services will also have a higher price tag. And when they have a higher price tag, who is going to consume these things? It still boils down to the issue of the citizens. The citizens are the consumers. Do they have that purchasing power to buy these products again? Even if they must buy at all because they are necessities, they have to reduce their buying because their purchasing power has reduced. When you have an economy like that, it is difficult for government to actually enforce tax on its citizens. But that's the way to go. Every state client gets their money primarily from tax and other innovative ideas. So government should continue to think of how to improve on infrastructure, on our health system, on our education, on youth development, on industrializing the country, so that such that they will have more people to tax and more money or more revenue will come from taxation. Another area that remains untapped today is this issue of relying, processing, and adding value to our products, from agriculture to raw materials to local made products. We need to add value to them. We have countries still today getting our cassava. The cassava is still being exported either by crude or other way around, and they're being brought here in the name of processed starch and the rest, and we are still buying it. But if we continue to do that, we will have nowhere to go. Nigerians too need to change their mindset. But as much as government has their own challenges, we also need to change our mindset. We cannot continue to export our job opportunities, to export our future to other countries. at the detriment of our youth, of our coming generation. We need to change our mindset to imbibe and embrace made in Nigerian goods and products and services so that we can also grow our economy. If the government does not get it right, we are the one that suffers it the most, not those government officials. So we also need to begin to see how we ourselves can contribute to the economy, how we ourselves, from the little money we are getting, can see pay certain form of taxes to government to improve the economy, how we ourselves can use that power that we have to vote to change a bad government to a good government. Not because we are being given some stipend during the election period, and for that reason we vote who happens to be the highest bidder. That should not be the case this time. We need to be looking inward and see how we can better the lot of ourselves by ourselves. Nigeria is for us, and we are the only one that can make it better. If a bad government is there, it is only going to be there for a period of 4 or maximum of 8 years. Our destiny is in our hands. We need to work on improving our lot. It starts from our own community ourselves. Can we see how we can gather ourselves and improve our community? Must we wait endlessly for government to come and do everything for us? If we improve our community, the economic situation of our community will also improve. We'll be able to do more enterprise, and we'll have money to do other things and even pay tax and support our young ones that are in our area such that they will not embrace crime. That's the way to go. So it's an all-inclusive thing if we must get it right.
Absolutely. And final question for this morning. Can President Muhammadu Buhari genuinely be seeking debt forgiveness, as he mentioned a few weeks ago, while he continues to borrow?
I did not get that right.
I'm asking, can the president continue to, mention debt forgiveness while he continues to borrow?
There are two opposite things. There are two opposite things. Let's bring it down to a common man's understanding. If you borrow money from me, you are telling me to forgive you and cancel your debts, and you are coming back to borrow the more, it means that you have not gotten it right. You will forgive somebody who is repentant and who is ready to change his way of life, his thought of doing things. So if you are begging for forgiveness and you are still borrowing, it means you have not changed your way of doing things. And that forgiveness will also encourage you to even borrow the more. So naturally, forgiving or even borrowing the more is not the way to go. The way to go is, if we must go for forgiveness, go for debt cancellation, we need to also stop borrowing. That will show to the forgiver that actually this country, this government has actually changed their way of doing things and are ready now to work on getting things done the right way. And that's what we need to do at this time. We just must be self-dependent as a nation. We must be self-dependent as a sovereign state, individual states of the country. We must be self-dependent as a local government. We must be self-dependent as even individuals. That's the way to go. And government is at the forefront. They need to work by example so that we also can follow their example in making all ourselves self-dependent. Government should please work on raising the idea of borrowing to support our budgets, our existence, our sovereignty.
All right. Femi Gbeshola, I truly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us and spending time with us on The Breakfast this morning. We wish you a very beautiful weekend ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a privilege.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Stay with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're moving to the southeast to talk about the possibility and the idea of a state of emergency in Anambra State as we move closer to the elections on the 6th of November. Stay with us here on The Breakfast.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
Are you ready to party right from the comfort of your TV screen? The Rundown's here to save the day. From freshly baked videos to the classics to the youngins and dope conversations, all in one chart. We got you covered. Just tune in to The Rundown every Friday, 10:30 p.m. West African time. The Rundown. Let's turn it up.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the result of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, Abi.
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let everybody come and say. The moment we stop having charlatans occupy political offices, we will curtail hate speech.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you don't talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Welcome once again to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Now let's take the conversation to Anambra State, where there was a rumored emergency rule in Anambra, of course, in the steps closer to the November 6th governorship election. The Attorney General, Abubakar Malami, was rumored to have made mention that there's a possibility of a state of emergency in Anambra State. The governor of the state, Willie Obiano, was in the news this morning saying President Muhammadu Buhari was not necessarily aware of those plans and that the Attorney General goofed. It's one of the headlines that we took this morning. We're going to speak with Nick Agule, as a public affairs analyst. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, of course, get into it. What are your views on the rumored emergency rule in Anambra State? Are you part of those who believe it is necessary, seeing the security challenges the Southeast has been experiencing, and of course the elections coming soon?
My reaction to the rumor is that it is a bad dream, a very bad dream for our democracy, and that dream should better not come to reality. First of all, when the Attorney General of Nigeria speaks of state of emergency, which part of the Constitution is he standing on? Which democracy? Those who have been charged with responsibility or running a democracy must allow democracy to run. First of all, if a local state of emergency is declared and probably the elections, the upcoming elections in Anambra, does not hold, that is a victory for, because that's what we want. We want elections to hold. So one will expect the federal government of Nigeria and the Anambra government to do everything possible to ensure the elections hold. So I cannot understand why the Attorney General is speaking of a state of emergency, a situation that will most likely to affect the forthcoming governorship election. and handing victory to IPOB. So my view is that this is a dream that better not come to reality.
Yeah, well, Mr. Agule, I'm going to play devil's advocate. What do you think the government should do, or in what ways do you think that they can get around ensuring that people feel safe? Because in the last few weeks, I'm sure you know that, people in the Southeast haven't necessarily felt very safe. We've seen killings, we've seen attacks on security agencies and INEC offices. So how do you think the government can pull off a safe and secure Anambra for in the build-up to the elections, maybe a couple of days before, during the elections, and after? What resources do you think the Nigerian government can, put together?
It is straightforward. We have a president who is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria. This president took an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that Constitution sets out two cardinal objectives for the president. And those are the provision of security and welfare for the citizens of Nigeria, Anambra State inclusive. So what the government needs to do is to provide security in Anambra State. Anambra State is a very small state in comparison to states in Nigeria in terms of land. So why can't the federal government and the Anambra State government jointly cooperating with each other provide security so that Anambra is safe and secured? This is failure on the side of the government. So let me say one thing. I can understand that the security architecture in Nigeria is overstretched. It's actually overwhelmed because insecurity has spread across the country, and the army is having to deal with this security with operation this, operation that, all over the country. The police are also overstretched, but if an important event in our democratic journey, like governorship election, is upcoming in the state, Anambra, the federal government must deploy more available security forces to Anambra, to police Anambra, to give Anambra security so that this governorship election will hold. What is happening is a war between and the federal government, the state government. So they cannot war be won by support. Now, let me tell you another thing. The federal government needs to deploy intelligence security. Intelligence security is that which prevents this attack from happening. This attack will be in the board before the people strike. That is intelligence security. How can you be able, in a state that is as small as Anambra, fish out those who are perpetrating this evil even before they strike? And then the second thing is that when they strike, they are allowed to way. How can they way in a state like Anambra? Where are the security forces in their position? If you shoot an AK-47 rifle here, the sound is going to be heard miles away. How can the security be there? People come radically and get it.
All right. It seems to be a challenge with the sound and the feed from Nick Agule this morning. Can you still hear me clearly, Mr. Agule?
I can hear you. But okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's not very clear, but...
Okay, so let me end that point. The point I want to end is this. President Buhari needs to be a true commander. A commander is the one that rewards successes by his men and repeats failure. If the president sacked Commissioner police, brigade commanders of public security agencies in every state where an attack has been perpetrated, and it was not stopped with intelligence, and the perpetrator, if at all they struck, they were not apprehended, arrested, or killed, depending on their choice. The president should terminate the appointment of those commanders. If the president begins to terminate appointments of commissioners and commanders, I can assure you that they will never sleep until they ensure enough intelligence is gathered to prevent this attack. And if this attack happens, the people will never get away.
Okay. Also, if you can briefly also share your views on curtailing the activities of the IPOB, not in a militarized way now, but what role do you think the government can also play in order to calm the IPOB down, and these perpetrators of violence in the southeast?
There are two ways. Number one is roundtable. Number two is force. So you have an insurrection like IPOB. You do not have any of sitting down, discussing with them, hearing them out, so that you understand their grievance, and then explaining your own position. And if their grievances are things that you can deal with, it is better you deal with them than resorting to an armed struggle. So that is one thing. The federal government should and can engage IPOB in a roundtable, so that let them know that they are being helped. They are citizens of Nigeria. They have grievances against the state, and the federal government is a father. Number state government is also a father, and they should engage IPOB in a roundtable so that they can have this discussion, understand each other. That is one way. The second way is, if IPOB will not listen, if IPOB will not come to the roundtable, if IPOB demand that they want a state of Biafra, which is not constitutionally provided, and they don't want to give explanations that the only way to get a state of Biafra is to get a referendum into the Constitution of Nigeria, and from that referendum, you can then get a state of Biafra. The federal government force on them. They don't want to reason. The federal government should be forced on them. If the federal government cannot fight for in a state like Anambra, or even in the whole region, if the federal government can confront them and claim them, we will all be afraid. Because if an army, a whole army of a country comes against us now, it means our army can protect them. So we should all have anxiety on this.
All right, Nikagula, I think we would have to wrap it up here. It wasn't entirely seamless or clear, but we thank you for joining us, and of course I think we got a good part of the message that you had to put across. Thanks for your time as always, truly appreciated, and we wish you a beautiful weekend ahead.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that's where we will be wrapping up the breakfast on Plus TV Africa this morning and this week. We'll be back here again on Monday morning, actually, to, of course, have another week of the breakfast. We wish you a very beautiful weekend ahead. And, of course, my final message this morning is once again to remind everyone that elections have consequences, regardless of how you see it. And those consequences can last for either 4 years or 8 long years. And sometimes those 8 long years, a lot of people may not even survive. And so it's a very, very important decision to be made every time that Nigerians go to the polling booths. It's a very important decision to be made every time we have conversations concerning who takes over the leadership of the country every 4 or every 8 years, including at the state level and the local government level. Elections have consequences. I personally feel very bitter, that there are certain people who do not care about that aspect, because they feel and they know that they have certain things to gain by putting a particular person, a particular government in power. Once again, elections have consequences, and those consequences could last as long as 8 years. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. See you on Monday.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. The big day is here, and President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday presented the 2022 Budget of Economic Growth and Sustainability to a joint session of the National Assembly. The president assured that the budget would help in tackling insecurity, building infrastructure, and lead to economic growth when fully implemented. Emmanuel Ehijene's report is presented from our studios.
President Muhammadu Buhari arrives at the National Assembly at about 12 noon as planned. Lawmakers are already seated as he makes his way through the gallery, accompanied by ministers and top government officials. The event is a presentation of the 2022 appropriation bill. The president announces that the budget proposal is designed to build on the achievements of previous ones.
Members of the National Assembly, the 2022 and 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal stability paper set out the parameters for the 2022 budget as follows. A conservative oil price benchmark of 57 United States dollars per barrel.
A breakdown shows that 768.28 billion naira is for statutory transfers, 6.83 trillion naira for non-debt recurrent expenditure, 5.35 trillion naira for capital expenditure, and 3.61 trillion naira for debt servicing.
We plan to finance the deficit mainly by new borrowings, totaling 5.01 trillion naira, 90.73 billion naira for privatization proceeds and 1.16 trillion naira drawdowns on loans secured for social development projects.
The Senate President Hamid Lawan had earlier harped on the need to generate more revenue from government agencies.
You will be laying the 2022 appropriation bill. Mr. President, I commend you for maintaining this trajectory of presenting the annual budget estimates before the joint sitting of the National Assembly in good time to enable the Assembly work on the bill.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, on his part, promises that thorough accounting would be demanded for previously appropriated funds.
Over the past year, the House has passed several important resolutions relating to healthcare access, primary education, rural infrastructure deficits, and national security that require actual funding.
The 2022 budget proposal is no doubt an ambitious one, but now the expectations from Nigerians will be that government has the political will to implement it.
The spending plan proposed by President Buhari has a total expenditure of 16.39 trillion naira. Public-private partnerships will feature prominently next year, but there is a huge deficit of 6.26 trillion naira to be financed mainly by new borrowings. An expert is advising that all borrowings be local. PlusTvAfrica's Mercy Ebokpo reports.
The 2022 Budget of Economic Growth and Sustainability has a projected capital expenditure of 5.35 trillion naira, a non-debt recurrent spending of 6.8 trillion naira, and debt servicing projected to cost 3.61 trillion naira. With crude oil averaging $67 a barrel this year, the oil price benchmark for 2022 has been set at $57 per barrel, with an oil production estimate of 1.88 million barrels per day. The budget proposal is based on an exchange rate of 410 naira 15 kobo to the dollar and projected GDP growth of 4.2%, while the inflation rate is 13%. But there is a proposed budget deficit of 6.26 trillion naira.
We plan to finance the deficit mainly by new borrowings, totaling 5.01 trillion naira, 90.73 billion naira for privatization proceeds.
President Buhari sought to allay fears over Nigeria's growing debt.
Some have expressed concern over our resort to borrowing to finance our fiscal gaps. They are right to be concerned. However, we believe that the debt level of the federal government is still within sustainable limits. borrowing at specific strategic projects and can be verified publicly.
But a sustainability consultant would like the government to look inwards in funding the budget deficit.
Currently, MDAs, as well as international oil companies and other very important organizations across the country, they've refused to remit certain funds within their disposal to the federal government. And we know that this fund runs into trillions of naira. So I think if the president can actually focus on getting these MDAs and IOCs and other relevant organizations to do the remittance they need to do in respect to their taxes and other obligations to the federal government, maybe we'll just be able to generate just enough money to be able to shove the issue of borrowing to the ground.
With the early presentation of the 2022 appropriation bill and all things being equal, Nigeria could well be on track for a budget cycle of 12 calendar months from January to December. Messi Bokbo for Plus TV Africa.
And federal lawmakers have been reacting to the budget presentation by President Muhammadu Buhari at a joint session of both chambers of the National Assembly. Some, however, frowned at the incessant borrowing by government and more particularly aggrieved at a further borrowing to fund the 2022 budget.
And there's a need to also break new grounds. A number of new capital projects are going to be implemented. There's also the need to increase spending in some sectors, of our economy. If you take, for instance, humanitarian affairs, that is part of the reasons why this budget, got increased than what we had last year.
We remain concerned about debt servicing, particularly when a huge chunk of the recurrent and is going to be funded through domestic and international loans. I personally believe that we have borrowed enough. We should see whatever growth in our GDP from domestic production before we begin to talk about additional borrowing.
A nation that has infrastructure is a rich nation. So Nigeria should do whatever it can to ensure that borrowed funds are used to fund infrastructure.
If you look at the budget presentation, look at the debt service. The debt service is almost above capital. 3-point-something trillion. Why I say it's embarrassing is for the first 16 or to 25 years back, Nigerian money are looted, keep it, some they put our money like dead bodies in the grave, they buried our money, some they carry our money abroad. Why can't the government make a strong interrogation and investigation team? Call back these people, investigate, bring back our money.
The National Executive Committee, of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has approved the zoning of the party's chairmanship position to the north. The decision followed the adoption of the recommendation contained in the report of the PDP's National Convention Zoning Committee, chaired by Enugu Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi. The Ugwuanyi Zoning Committee had swapped the chairmanship and other elective party positions presently held by persons from the north with those from the south. Briefing journalists shortly after the meeting, the spokesman for the PDP, Kola Olugbodiyan, said, following the NEC's approval, party leaders in the 6 geopolitical zones have been mandated to go back to base and micro-zone the various elective party positions among the states in their various states.
NEC considered the report of Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi's report on zoning, and NEC approved the zoning as presented, which, as you understand, the positions that are in the south will go to the north, and the positions that are in the north will go to the south. There's no decision here, there's no any other decision outside what had been taken prior to now on having our national convention on the 30th and the 31st. What the party has done now is to do the larger zoning of north-south. So the respective zones of the north and the south will now go inwards to go and microzone the positions that have been allotted to either of the zones. It is after that that people don't know what offices they can contest and whether to begin to buy forms.
And also in the news, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says where the president comes from has never been the solution to the series of problems facing the nation. He stated that the next president can come from any region as his party moves to reclaim power at the center in 2023. Atiku made the remarks at the meeting of the PDP's National Executive Committee held at the party's national headquarters in Abuja. Addressing members of the party's highest decision-making body who approved the recommendations of the PDP zoning committee, he asked them to be fair and just in deciding where the party's presidential candidates would come from.
There is no such thing as a president from southern Nigeria or a president from northern Nigeria. There is only one, a president from Nigeria, for Nigeria, by Nigerians. Talking about inclusions, I would like to see a new national working committee of our party, our great party, that has sizable numbers of our youth and women. The decision of NET today will either see us PDP into the villa in 2023 or not. Since the inception, this party has faced serious challenges and have risen above sentiments to solve those challenges and moved forward.
And Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has flagged off the Southwest agenda for Asiwaju Tinubu's presidential ambition, Swagger 2023. Lagos State Government House correspondent Love Ikuku reports that the launch attracted a huge crowd.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu joins the full political machinery in the state to host the carnival-like event. Swagger, a group led by Senator Dayo Adeyeye, is a political movement building support base for the former Lagos State Governor in anticipation of his interest to contest for the president in the 2023 general elections.
We have met all the Obas in Lagos. In the last 3 or 4 days, we succeeded in meeting at least 80 Obas in Lagos State, from Badagry Division to Ikeja Division, Ikorodu Division, Epe Division, Lagos Division, Lagos Island Division. And we have also met political leaders as well.
Sanwo-Olu said Swagger was formed based on the belief in Tinubu's vision and political philosophy that prioritize development of human capital and economy. The governor promised to mobilize more political support for the group, adding that he would join hands with their coordinators to take the agenda beyond the Southwest region.
When we told you that you have kept the best for the last, you can see Lagos. Lagos!
Asiwaju has raised so many leaders in this country. It is to his credit that the kind of development that has made Lagos such a great state in Nigeria have been due to the foundation it laid for this great state.
Worthy of note is that the signature Bola Tinubu is yet to confirm if he's contesting the 2023 elections, but that's not the worries of these ardent supporters rooting for him to do so. From Lagos, Love Ikuku Oyedoku, reporting for Plus TV Africa.
You're still watching News Brief on Plus TV Africa. The Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, has refuted plans to bring back the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. Baba described the rumor as false and fake news. A statement on Thursday by the Force Public Relations Officer, CP Frankumba, said, notes that the force has since reorganized its operational structure to fill the vacuum created by the disbandment of SARS. IGP Usman Baba said the leadership of the force is focused on efforts at deepening reforms within the police and bequeathing Nigerians a police force that will be more effective, efficient, technology-driven, humane, and rule of law compliant. And security agents have rescued 187 people abducted by armed gangs in Zamfara State. These are some of the rescued persons with torn clothes and, of course, you can see struggling to walk. It's also a struggle for many to sit, making you wonder the sort of conditions they must have been subjected to. They would be transported back to their homes and would also be rehabilitated. Zamfara has been at the center of kidnappings by armed bandits who targeted schools, villages, and travelers.
The bandits decided to flee because of the pressure on them. That gives us the guts to enter and get them rescued.
So talking security, the police have rescued no fewer than 47 victims from an illegal rehabilitation center in Kano. The police command's spokesman, Abdullahi Haruna, has disclosed that the inmates range between 12 and 30 years, all male. They've become weak due to torture, with one of them in critical condition. All will, however, be treated at the Murtala Mohammed Specialist Hospital. Police say 2 operators of the center have also been arrested and will be prosecuted at the conclusion of investigation. Now to news in other parts of Africa. Morocco's King Mohammed has named a new government after last month's election. The monarch is keeping the foreign and interior ministers in place, but appointing a new finance minister. The new government's main task will be to implement a development model that the palace has commissioned. It is aimed at reducing inequality, cutting poverty, and fostering growth. The appointed Prime Minister's Liberal RNI party has formed a coalition with the Liberal PAM and Conservative Istiqlal parties. The three command a comfortable majority in parliament with a combined 270 seats compared to the 198 needed to pass legislation. And lawyers to Burkina Faso's former president Blaise Compaoré, the main accused in a long-awaited trial on the 1987 assassination of his predecessor Thomas Sankara, says he will boycott the upcoming hearings. In the trial opening on Monday, Compaoré and 13 others face an array of charges in the death of Sankara, a charismatic revolutionary whom followers described as the African Che Guevara. Sankara took power in the impoverished Sahel state in 1983, renaming the country the following year from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, which means the land of honest men. He carried out a string of radical policies, including nationalizations, public housing, and a ban on female genital mutilation, polygamy, and forced marriages. But he was shot dead on the 15th of October 1987, aged just 37, during a push led by Compaoré, a former friend. Moving outside Africa now, the World Health Organization has approved RTSS, or Mosquirix, a vaccine developed by British drug maker GlaxoSmithKline for malaria. The global body has also recommended it for use in Africa.
Dear colleagues and friends, as some of you may know, I started my career as a malaria researcher, and I longed for the day that we would have an effective vaccine against this ancient and terrible disease. And today is that day, an historic day. Today, WHO is recommending the broad use of the world's first malaria vaccine. This recommendation is based on results from an ongoing pilot program in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi that has reached more than 800,000 children since 20.
Did not result in
Sustainable Development Goal number 9 is about. The organizers speak on the essence of the conversation.
This interactive session is premised on the urgent need for us as industrialists to examine and prioritize the nexus.
Session where Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations Amina Mohammed encouraged the association to participate in the global impact.
In ensuring Nigeria takes profit to protect the planet from exploitation and help conserve natural resources.
So if we see the UN's commitment to